What's up? Welcome to your Self-Helpless snack, where we give you a little taste of the Self-Helpless podcast with a mini episode. If you want to dive deeper into this topic, you can find the full episode linked in this episode's description.
It was a handful of things. One of them was commitment.
Ooh.
So before I'd be like, oh, I'm going to quit smoking today. Like it was like, I'm going to take out the trash. It's like not a big commitment, right?
Yeah.
And so for this one, I said, I'm going to quit, but I'm going to quit on this date. That's not an idea I came up with, but you choose a quit date that's like at least a week out. From there, you start doing the things that you need to do ahead of that. So you start preparing for it. And
Okay.
so already you can see how that's already a much bigger commitment than what I was doing before. It's like, this is my quit date. I told people about it. I started tracking my current smoking so that I could see what are the triggers, like what triggered me to smoke.
Oh,
And then, which taught me a lot about triggers or cues is another word for it. What triggers the urge to do the habit. And so I learned a lot about that around changing habits in general. So that's one. And then accountability was part of that commitment. So I not only I promised my wife and daughter, which was already a huge amount of accountability compared to what I had done before.
yeah.
But I was on a forum where other people were quitting smoking, and I promised them that I would post on that forum before I ever took a puff. And that commitment held me when the urge came. And then the second thing that was a really big one for me was bringing mindfulness to the urges. So before, and like right now, every person listening to this, we act on our urges. Everyone does this. It's like, check Instagram, you go to your favorite news sites online. We're just doing things without realizing what's driving it.
Yeah.
Smoking, eating junk food, drinking alcohol, drugs, all of that kind of stuff is all driven through an urge that arises in the body as a physical sensation, and then we just act on it without knowing that that's happening, and it's like we have no choice. So if you can bring mindfulness awareness to the urge, you now are at choice, which is a
Mm,
huge empowerment, right? And
yeah.
so what I learned is that the urge is a physical sensation, usually comes from stress, almost like a tightness or a rising kind of sensation in the body. And what I learned is that if you can stay with that urge mindfully, it goes away. Like it's just like a wave that kind of
Mm,
rises and crests. And then it comes back, and then it's like smaller and smaller waves. And it's such a simple thing, but if you could actually practice that, it will change your entire life, because it's like when you have the urge to like lash out at someone and criticize them or gossip or do all the unhealthy things that we don't want to do, we can all of a sudden like bring this mindfulness to it, and it takes 5 seconds. Anyway, those were two of the biggest ones. There's other ones around rewards that I changed, get a massage, or
yeah.
those kinds of things. um, but yeah, those probably were the two biggest ones: commitment, and then working with the urges mindfully.
What did you do leading up during that week when you set your quit date? What kind of practical stuff were you prepping for? And then what did you do when you did get an urge? Did you swap smoking out with something different?
Yeah, great question. So the first thing, I mentioned some of them already. So that's where I made the accountability things, promised my wife
Right.
and daughter. I posted on the forums and tracked my triggers. One of the things I did was carried around a little piece of paper and a pencil. And every time I had the urge to smoke, I would put a little tick mark. And so this was just bringing awareness to the urge. But I also had another piece of paper where I would write down, what's the thing that just happened when I had that urge? When I put the little tick mark down, what's the thing that preceded it? It's like, new email came in that like, I have to deal with this crisis or whatever it is, or like I just ate, is another one. So all of a sudden I was bringing awareness to all of the things that brought the urges on. The next thing I did was I took those urges or the triggers, and I said, what am I going to do when those come up after I eat? What do I want to do instead of smoking? Because you can't just stop something. If you're already doing it to cope with stress, you can't just stop, because now you have nothing to deal with stress, and you just like get more and more stressed, and then eventually you'll be like, ah, like if overeating is your thing, right? Like you're like, I can't eat, and then you're stressed about not eating, and then the only thing you know how to deal with stress is eating. Eventually, you're gonna like, 2 a.m. be like stuffing a sleeve of Oreos down your mouth. So
Yeah.
I had to come up with a list. And so some of them were things like go out for a walk or a run. One was meditate or breathe to kind of like self-soothe, meditating on the urges. I did start eating a lot of candy, but then I changed that like a couple weeks into it. Frozen grapes were my replacement for that.
Oh, that's a
That's a
good
magical
one.
trick, by the way. I didn't invent it, but frozen grapes for some reason satisfy the urge in the mouth in a way that like smoking does or candy does.
Thank you for tuning in to Self-Helpless. You can find our brand new merch, Patreon community, and other fun goodies at selfhelplesspodcast.com. We'd be thrilled if you left an Apple Podcast review, shared this episode with a friend, or post about it on Instagram and tag us at Self-Helpless Podcast so we could repost you and say hi. As an independently produced show, we sincerely appreciate your support. Thanks, everybody.